Hello there, it's Vapoida. Today we're gonna talk a little bit in detail about a few well-known Linux. Excuse me a second. Hello there.
I'd just like to interject for a moment. What you're referring to as Linux is in fact GNU/Linux, or as I've recently taken to calling it GNU plus Linux. Linux is not an operating system unto itself.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
A fully functioning GNU system.
Alright, GNU/Linux distributions that are, to me, over-advised, overhyped, and overall overused. By the way, if you want to know a few GNU/Linux distributions that are, to me, good and that are worth your time, you can check my other video on the opposite of this topic by clicking right here on the screen. So, let's get started. Starting with ElementaryOS. Basically, an Ubuntu clone using a fancy desktop environment that it introduced to the market, kinda like Cinnamon did with Mint back in the day. But what does it offer when compared to Ubuntu? Well, to be honest, not much. Well, sure, you'll have the updates on the desktop environment faster, but otherwise, to me, it is a macOS clone from the way it looks, even though the developers denied it. But also, Pantheon, the desktop environment that it features, is available on other mainstream distributions repositories such as Arch Linux, OpenSUSE, and Debian. So it kind of renders the use of the system a bit dull, if you know what I mean. Well, of course, it still has a bit more worth than Ubuntu, from the way that I see it. Anyway, moving on. Number 9, CentOS. Now, the name of CentOS is a bit unfamiliar to a few people I know, but I still chose to add this to the video, and you'll see why in a second. CentOS is essentially a free clone of RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and was created to allow people to have the functionalities of the non-free operating system on their computers or servers. The idea essentially works, until you put it into perspective with Debian, which also provides a server-oriented solution, except for free, and that has more mainstream use. Now, it is useful to a spoonful of people. In certain scenarios, it is kind of good for writing off as to its user base, but I've got a few people that use it on their computers like as a daily driver, and not even on a server, but like on a laptop. Like, what the heck? The life cycle of one particular version is not adapted to any use other than server one. So I chose to add this distribution to the video for this reason. Moving on. Number 8 with SteamOS. A lot can be said about it. It is the solution proposed by Steam to answer to the growing demand of open source gaming. It is a Debian derivative that behaves a little bit like a media center with controllers and such. Consider it a bit like a free and open source version of the XMB, the PlayStation's operating system. The problem is that a lot of people are becoming interested by gaming on other systems than Windows and are eager to find an alternative. I found myself scouting the internet, thinking about what a newcomer would search for, putting myself into their mindset, and I found that a lot of websites brand it as what they're looking for. And I decided to include it into this video because it is a bit misleading, because websites are advertising a media center kind of operating system to people that look for a fully fledged replacement for Windows in order to game on Linux. Also, there is nothing SteamOS can do which another distro properly configured can do. It is kind of effortless to do. Moving on. Number 7. ParrotOS. ParrotOS. Now there's something a few people considering to use GNU/Linux seem to think kind of a myth that seems indestructible. That an operating system made for hackers is good for them. Yes. Just because the system is packed with fancy tools. Hold on a sec. Alright. Holy crap. Yeah, so just because the operating system is packed with fancy tools, pen testing tools made for people whose job is checking computer security on a daily basis, people seem to think that using it will turn them into these cool guys. You know, the hacker kind of guy. Matrix and stuff. They are wrong. They will end up with an operating system that won't fit their needs, that will be security compromised from the start, with no user but the root one for pen testing reasons, with software incompatibilities, as those distributions ain't made for mainstream use. It kind of gets worse as it goes. Parrot is not a bad operating system on its own, heck no, it's even really good, but people need to understand that it is not made for mainstream usage. Moving on. Number 6 with Ubuntu. Now, I think it is no secret to anyone by now that Ubuntu may be the most name-known distribution on the planet, and what it does is kind of noble. It is essentially there to provide an easy-to-use free alternative to Windows and the likes to users that are willing to dump non-free operating systems. But in 2012, Canonical made an accord with Amazon that essentially linked their desktop environment, the one that Ubuntu used at the time, Unity, to Amazon servers. Doing so linked the user's computer to Amazon servers, thus collecting their information unbeknownst to them. Now, that affair, as you can guess, made a lot of ink flow, and people were alerted kind of fast. Canonical corrected the issue by asking their users to opt in order to have their data tracked, in order to keep the Ubuntu project afloat. But the harm was made. It is a fairly good distribution to me, although I had a really bad experience with it. And I will go as far as saying that other distributions have the same goal as Ubuntu and offer the same content that Ubuntu does, but with a cleaner name. Moving on. Number 5. Black Arc Linux. Now don't get me wrong, this one is awesome. It friggin' rocks. Take a lightweight GNU/Linux distribution, Arc Linux here for instance, and pack it. Pack it to the brim with every pen testing tool known to man. And now add even more. You find yourself with Black Arc Linux, a pen testing distribution that is kind of bloated, I gotta admit. For instance, it took me a 32 gigabyte USB drive to make a live install of Black Arc on it. It targets people that want to test vulnerabilities on their surroundings and their workspace, of course. But again, a lot of people seem to think that they have to start from the get-go on GNU/Linux by using a pen testing distribution. Moving on. Number 4 with Solus. Solus is a rolling distribution with a version system, kind of like a stable OS. Now it is where it gets problematic. It is the kind of thing that fools new users into thinking or believing that a particular distribution can be stable. And that said, easy to use, which Solus kind of claims to be. One thing is, a rolling distribution is never easy to operate. Ever. It takes a lot of work to maintain as an end user, and it takes updates, regular software version checks, and the knowledge in order to fix your system in case of breakage. Which, by the way, will happen one day or another since the system is rolling. which is why new users should stay away from running distributions unless they are ready to take the plunge and willing to learn how their operating system works, or like use a distribution as documented as Arc, assuring them to be never lost in the process of learning how their systems work. And it takes a lot of trial and error. You will end up with a kinda unstable, unusable distributions at time, caused by like bad updates and such. Solus ships to desktop environment, and those are quite infamous for their heaviness and for being unoptimized, budgy, and deepen. It should be used only if you really know what you're getting into and if you really want what it has to offer. But I'm adding something: you will need a previously acquired knowledge on computers. Moving on. Number 3. Kali Linux. I'm getting triggered already and wanting to wait till the last 3 ones in order to talk about this one. So, Kali is a pen testing distribution, the most well-known one, from me, and it is also the most used for what it offers. It is good for what it does. Yes, good. But it is also the go-to distribution for most young wannabe GNU/Linux users that just want to be a cool lit hacker with Kali, just because it is what the hackers use. But guess what? It is not tailored for day-to-day use, and some will go as far as saying that they're getting disgusted about how it doesn't fit their needs because it is not made for them, and they will go back to Windows, and they will also say crap about GNU/Linux just because of how poor their choice of distribution was. So stop asking if it is suited for a day-to-day use, and go for a good, stable, well-maintained, and secure operating system instead. End of the line. Moving on. Moving on to number 2 with Linux Mint. Now, it has been good for a while, and it even has been there when Ubuntu went through controversy with Amazon. It has unofficially been the most used distribution worldwide for a kind of long time, for good reasons at the time. Mint was originally created because of patent restrictions that prevented the codecs to be easily installed in mainstream distributions, at the time Fedora and Ubuntu. Things changed. The latter added a menu that allowed easy installation of the previously mentioned codecs, while Fedora managed the issue by creating a repository for legally problematic non-free content. Mint in this managed to stay fresh and relevant by soon publishing a fork of GNOME 3 named Cinnamon, kind at the same time when all mainstream operating systems made major user interface restrictions. And at the time, Canonical was struggling to keep its product's name clear through the controversy it initiated, providing an alternative to disappointed users. But now, Mint recently had their servers hacked, its ISOs infected with malware. If you don't know what it is, an ISO is basically a disk image that allows you to install the system. So that got infected with malware, and it became infamous for having an awful hardware and codec support, which was the reasons it was created for in the first place. It is also, it became really unstable for poor inclusion of Debian packages and insecure from the way it manages its updates. Yeah, that's a lot. Now there is a replacement that is excellent for everything Linux Mint was ever good at, MX Linux. It is virtually defectless so far, and if you consider the Mint, go for MX instead. On to the number 1, Manjaro. Now, it is gonna be a tough slug, the final boss. So, Manjaro here, where am I starting at? Manjaro is a distribution that claims to be easy to use while being rolling, which is not possible. But not only does it do that, it claims to be stable by just delaying package updates a week before releasing them. It is not what stable stands for, and it represents a risk in case of vulnerability. Speaking of which, it got fairly known for being unsafe because of how it managed deep level vulnerabilities, and most importantly, the time they took to fix the issue. Added to this, a lot of people actually confuse Arc with Manjaro because it features an installer, which Arc doesn't do. While being a different operating system, for this reason, it is absolutely over-advised. May it be by its user base and by YouTubers that want to show off on screen with something fancy. It features a poorly made implementation of the Arc user repository that seems to work out of pure luck. Arcman is a year-old Turkish distribution that does what Manjaro wants to do better, with less compromises for your security. Some go as far as saying that Manjaro fakes its DistroWatch score with bots, and I know that a lot of people using it are not gonna be okay with what I say here, but all of this, it's facts. Sorry. There, that was 10 distributions that I find really overused and over-advised by many people that don't necessarily know the quirks of the operating system they are recommending, that they advise people to use. Now, I hope this video, alongside the previous one that I released, will allow a few people to, shall I say, see a bit better through the mist of the myriads of flavors that the false world can offer. If you're a Tide experienced, you'll be surprised, but a lot of people are getting confused by the topic. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video. Yeah, that would make me really happy. And I'll see you in the next video. See ya.